Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you could come tonight. These are always so exciting. We love to do these. Oh, if I turn my head this way, you can't hear, right? Okay. I'll try to keep that in mind. Okay. Well, welcome, everyone. Our pastor is not with us tonight, so I will open us with a prayer, and then I'll talk a little bit about the class. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the beautiful sunshine and the rain that we got yesterday, and thank you for all these people and the people who are preparing the food. I ask that you bless us all and help us to learn something today. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, so this class is, we've been doing it for a little over 2 years now. We like to say every 6 weeks, but that's, it's 6 weeks occasionally, but our next one is the end of August, so that's more than 6 weeks. And then usually middle of November, so we take a break till the 1st of February. So, because, people are busy and so are we. Tonight it is, I will be cooking. Heather, who you have met before and will meet again. And then we have John Foskett is another one of our cooks for tonight. We go to church here, and we just love interacting with you. We love cooking. We love learning new things. So if you saw the flyer either on your email or in person somewhere, you probably got the West Africa or African vibe. So that was our idea. But none of us, well, actually, I don't know about Mr. Foskett. Maybe he's cooked West African before. Heather and I have not. So we looked online, as some cooks do, Oh, here's an idea. Anyway, so we had our ideas, our recipes. We had already practiced. And then I was at a potluck with actual West Africans. And I'm like, what an opportunity. So I talked to them and I said, we think that these recipes in West Africa are probably a little bolder. They're probably not as tame as what you'll be tasting today. But we also know many of you have a little bit of a tender mouth. So we wanted to make sure everyone could taste the food, or would be able to taste the food. We also have jars of habanero sauce. So anyway, I'm talking to these people one's from Nigeria. I don't remember where the other two were from. And I said, we have these recipes, but we think they're bolder. What kind of spices do you use to make the flavors better? What do you use? And they started to say, and I said, actually, I looked online and it says this kind of pepper and this kind of pepper and this kind of pepper. I said, besides peppers, what do you use to make it bolder? And they just laughed at me. I'm like, no, we use peppers. So the Scotch bonnet, which is just it can be a little hotter or less hot than a habanero, is the big one, I guess. So we have habanero sauce, if you care to put a shake on there, and if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. We have, back to this, that was a sidebar, I guess. We have in the past few years felt the need for going to a healthier lifestyle. So like Heather's been vegetarian her whole life, and now she does plant-based because she feels like that's a little healthier than the cheese and the eggs. And I used to eat meat, and I don't now. And then, so we just have various levels. Anyone, my sister, I told you guys, those of you who were here last time, told you she's 52 years old, and she has always been a meat eater. Mostly she eats pasta, chicken, and cheese. Like that's, and she asked me, she's like, oh, do you have some recipes from your class? I would like to try something new that's maybe a vegetable. So, so you can start anywhere. You don't have to go, it doesn't have to be all in, you know. You can just start with, if there's a dish that you like and you want to change it up, make it where it's plant-based, just start with that, or you can, you know, it's whatever you choose to do. Or nothing at all. Yum, this is good food, or not so good, whatever. I don't want to try again, you know. It's all up to you. Oh, wait, I just said that. To share our, options. I thought it said opinions. I'm like, yes, I want to tell you my opinion about everything. So you guys can read, so you can see that. We like to think about small changes we can make to make healthier choices for ourselves. And that's what we're hoping that you want to do also. So, and I know there are varying views on what's healthy. So just to give you some information so that you can decide for yourself what is healthy or healthier than maybe what you have been doing. Maybe you're already perfectly healthy. I'm not. So go ahead. Woohoo, West Africa. This is probably where that story about the West Africans would have been a better place to put it. But our next one, we want to tell you a little bit about this. This is Africa, and the colored part is West Africa. Do we have one more slide or not? Okay, yeah. So Nigeria's here. One of our recipes, the first one, no, the second one, is from Nigeria. But then when I was talking to these West Africans, they said that, because I asked them about, harissa. That's a recipe that, or ingredient that John is going to use. They looked at it and they're like, oh, they thought it was from Senegal. So I don't know. I didn't do that much research. But so this is the area that these recipes may or may not have come from. And I say that because I said at this potluck, I said, oh, I brought the recipe that's a salad. I took that to the potluck. It was just a whole bunch of different people potluck. It wasn't plant-based, or it wasn't African food or anything like that. And I said, oh, did you try this salad? And the lady said, she's like, well, we don't really do salad in West Africa. So I don't know if it really is or not, but next slide. Yeah. Okay, so we always have our disclaimer. If you have questions about your health or recipes concerning your health, make sure you talk to your healthcare provider. And then if you have allergies, we need to know. The only thing that we're aware of as a common allergen tonight is cashews. So we have cashews in the salad, and then the rest of it should be fine. But if you have any allergies, if you can let us know, then we can make sure that we give you the correct food. Okay? So now we are on to Mr. John Foskett is going to show you or talk about making the West African peanut stew. All right.
Hi there.
Oh! I'm sorry, I took it.
You stole it. So Dawn wasn't really truthful with me when I volunteered for this. She said, oh, there's only going to be 5 or 6 people there. And now there's a whole room full. So I'm going to take just a few seconds and look around the room and see if there's anybody I recognize from being in the back of my car. And I don't see anybody. The problem would have been is my car used to be a patrol car. So I spent 20 years with the Helena Police Department and retired in 2013. had a good career, did a lot of different things, and it was really good to me. I worked a lot of night shifts, and I always didn't have the luxury of having a hot meal. So after I retired, I got to be at home a lot more, and I started working on my cooking and preparing, nice meals for my wife and I, and here we are. So I'm kind of pleased to present this West African non-peanut peanut stew. The only thing that substitutes for the peanuts is sunflower butter, which is actually really good. So I'm going to go over the recipe and kind of do a little cooking. Hopefully I don't burn anything. I wanted to talk about a couple of my favorite chefs before I really get started. And one who really sticks with me is Bobby Flay. He's well renowned. He's been a chef since I remember, but he's out of New York. He's pretty much world famous and a great chef. There's another interesting man named Marcus Samuelson. Anybody ever heard of Marcus? He essentially was an Ethiopian refugee when he was a child, and he got adopted by a family out of Sweden. And they put him through school. He became very successful, and now he has several restaurants in Harlem, and he's also pretty world famous. He has a lot of interesting culinary dishes that he presents. Some are kind of a little bit weird, but most of them are pretty well. And most recently, I came across a show on my MSN homepage called Spain on a Fork. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that or not, but it just popped up a couple weeks ago. And the chef is named Albert Bevilla, nice young man from Spain. And they have some really great recipes on there. A lot of, not vegetarian, but a lot of plant-based cooking. So if you get a chance, take a look at it. It might kind of stretch your imagination a little bit. So I'm going to go over the recipe real quick. And we're looking at onion, garlic, ginger. This is ginger. This is the easy way for ginger because I spent about half the morning chopping everything. Peppers. The spices are coriander, cumin, and this calls for whole coriander seeds. So a lot of chefs like to toast those lightly before they put them into a recipe. It kind of lets the flavors bloom. That's what I did with this one this morning. There's sweet potatoes, there's Yukon Gold potatoes or red skin potatoes, diced tomatoes, and kidney beans, which I found obviously at Winco. This is the base I use for the stock, which is vegetable-based stock. And paprika is in the seasoning mix. And there's some harissa powder, which the recipe is included. And from what I know harissa is like a Moroccan spice. It can have a little bit of heat to it. I tried to tone it down because this may not be for everybody, but it does add a nice mix to the dish. So the last thing that I brought along were some collard greens. I don't know if anyone's familiar with collard greens. You don't see too many of these around Montana. If you find them, they're kind of expensive, and sometimes they've been on the shelf a little bit too long. So you end up throwing away half of the bunch because the leaves turn yellow. But they have a pretty healthy rib in the middle. So if you cook with these, make sure you cut the rib out because it takes forever to cook and it's probably a little bitter. But otherwise it'll cook up well. So I kind of cheated today, and instead of collard greens, I'm going to use kale. So $4 for a 1-pound bag of kale, already washed, saves a lot of time, and there's not much waste. So that's what I liked about that. So I'm going to get going here before I talk too much, and I'll answer any questions we can have later on. So I did pre-cook most of these this morning, so I wasn't going to be here. So this is the pepper mix and the potatoes, and those just go in till you decide that they're done. Petite diced tomatoes and kidney beans. Yeah, this isn't a really hard recipe. The most difficult part is chopping everything. So when I made the big vessel that we're all having in front of us, it just took hours to seem like to get that done. And this is my spice mix. This is everything I put together just for time's sake. And this is the kale. I think what I like about this dish is once it came together, it was really colorful. It's got a lot of different character to it. Whether you like it or not, I don't know. It might not be for everybody, but I was kind of excited to try it because I like trying different things. I'm pretty much a vegetarian, have been for probably the last 10 years. When I did work at the PD, especially night shift, I would just bring my lunch because you never knew where you were going to be. You know, you didn't know if you're going to be off at 11 or off at 2 in the morning, so that way I always had something with me to sustain myself. Well, that's good. That's a good compliment. I hope, you know, like I said, not everyone's going to like the flavor profile, but if you look at what's in it, it's a very healthy meal, and it's very filling. It doesn't take a lot. One thing that I did want to include was the price point for making this, and if you just go with a single recipe, I figured out you could probably do it for about $1.50 a plate. So, which in this day and age is very, very affordable, and it goes a long way. Plus, it's kind of fun. You know, this is summertime. It's not really a summertime dish. I've been here about 30 years in Montana, and I kind of grew to like winter because it's time that I have to kind of forces you to be inside a little bit more. So I like cooking more soups and stews in the wintertime, and you know, this to me would be a really good wintertime kind of a meal. So it has two, in the giant recipe I made, the whole vessel, there were 2 jalapenos that I diced really, really finely. You might get a little bit of heat on the after of that. Well, good. I didn't want to burn out anybody's taste buds on the whole thing because it can get kind of spicy, and I didn't want to offend anybody with having it too hot. So, any other questions before I turn it over to Heather?
So if you make this with peanuts, do you crush them or chop them?
I think the recipe would call for like chunky peanut butter instead of the sunflower. The sunflower is kind of expensive, but for the purposes of this recipe, that's what it called for. I'm not pushing Winco, but they have a peanut butter station there that is really affordable, and just check it out. It's pretty good. This recipe called it whole, and that's why I was able to toast it, which lets that flavor blossom or bloom. Yeah, that's what it called for. So, yeah.
Had a nice little crunch in the back when you got a coriander.
Well, hopefully it kind of mixes it all together. You get little different taste bites, you know, throughout the whole recipe. So.
If we did use peanut butter instead of sunflower, would it be less healthy?
I don't know. A lot of, obviously, Don spoke of the allergens that different people have. Fat-wise, I don't know.
What was the question? Less healthy if it peanut butter versus
Yeah, I think Yeah, I mean, what they have at Winco is unsalted. I mean, it's just peanuts, and it grinds it right in front of you. You serve yourself. I just found out about 2 weeks ago, but it was a good find. So, well, hopefully no one's sweating or anything, and I'm glad I didn't recognize any faces, so that's a good thing. So, it made it a lot easier for me. So, okay.
Very cool.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed. Thanks. And I want to give some thanks to Don and Heather, because I've been to about 4 of these, and it always expands my cooking horizon, because she's really good at putting this on. And when she asked if I would do it, I thought, I don't know. And then here I am. So anyway, thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Dawn or Heather and clean up my mess.
All right. Next slide. See how pretty that is, guys? That's pretty awesome. I had prepared this lovely bowl to give the visual, and it got shaken up. So I was like, well, we're going to take a picture. All right. It's Nigerian fried rice. And before we get too deep in, they're going to serve it here in a couple minutes. There is no hot pepper in this fried rice, but we have a couple of bottles of habanero sauce that will circulate around the room if you would like to put a little bit of habanero sauce on. This is Melinda's. Everybody probably knows about Melinda's. This is Marie Sharp's from Belize. Not West Africa, but it's the primo stuff. So next slide. All right. Nigerian fried rice is a little bit different than what you're going to find at like maybe an Asian restaurant or the Asian side. It's not so saucy. It doesn't have like the soy sauce in it. It's kind of the flavoring comes from garlic and ginger, and then of course all the cool vegetables that we just looked at. All of those cool vegetables were not exactly chopped by hand. This cool little deal, yeah, I mean, I'm sure the person who lives above me was not happy with me doing this all day. Whatever, they'll get over it. But there's this cool little thing right here that it's got a little lid. And you just smack it down, and you've got these little things to dice with. It's helpful. It kind of helps make your veggies a little more uniform, which helps them cook a little better. So you're going to cook your rice, you're going to chop your veggies, and then after that, you're just going to kind of put everything in put your veggies in a pan. And I forgot something to stir with. Thank you. Those of you who've been here a while know I forget something every time. So you're going to stick your veggies in there, let them kind of cook up for, 3-4 minutes. It goes pretty quick. Thank you. I usually do this on like medium to medium high heat. When those get going, also, for those of you who don't know what habaneros are, these are a habanero. It's actually one of my favorite hot peppers. It just has a really great flavor. Somebody I knew back a few years ago, born and raised in Belize, I'm pretty sure that Marie Sharp's bottle that you see past her, I'm pretty sure as soon as they come out of the womb, they just slam one of those in their mouth. And, I mean, their tolerance for heat is amazing. So when these get kind of good and cooked, you'll add a little garlic. And then I got this as ginger paste. You can make your own ginger paste if you get the ginger root. I did not have the patience or time to do that. Sorry. Also, you can mince your own garlic. It's probably well, I see Melinda over there saying no, but for taste purposes, it's actually preferable, so sorry again, guys. But stick some of that in. As with all recipes that aren't baking where you need the science, you can kind of, fudge a little with it and play around with it and see what you got going. Add a little more pepper, green bell pepper, a little less. Add a little more cabbage or onion, or a little less. This recipe isn't an exact science. Same with your garlic and ginger. And then, when you got that going really well, you're going to get your pan really hot. You're going to add your rice in. Huh? With what kind of rice?
Cauliflower rice.
I have not, but yeah, you could do that. We're using brown rice tonight. It kind of gives a little boost. It does taste a little different. But yeah, you could use cauliflower rice, jasmine or basmati rice, brown rice. But then you just stir it around. This pan doesn't do as well with the frying to get that crisp. But overall simple recipe, and I think tasty. Again, it's a different kind of fried rice than probably what most of us are used to. But while that's going, any questions? Personally, I think the best would be a cast iron pan. No, the question is anything behind the long grain rice? No, but I think that's probably closer to the African type of rice. I think like Dawn had mentioned earlier, I don't have a lot of experience with West African food to know how truly authentic this is. But it is colorful and tasty. It's not that bold taste, it's more that pleasant taste. Any simple ingredients, really. It's kind of like go out to your garden, see what you got. Anything else? Yeah, it can get loud, like with carrots especially. Nope, it's just we slam it down. Carrots are harder. Nope, nope. There's no real noise with it. Carrots are a little bit louder. They're a little harder. It's Prep Solutions. I got it at Walmart. There's other brands out there, other stores. But yeah. If that's all, I think I'll finish this up in the back. Yeah.
I am going to, no, I'm not. Okay. Mine is the West African Fonio salad with mangoes and cashews. Okay, you have the recipe right there. There are several things here. The Fonio, I looked up, it's a tiny millet, which is not available in the 3 stores I looked at in this town. So I'm fairly confident that Amazon or like places online, you could probably find it. But I couldn't find it in the 3 stores I looked in. So I just used millet, actual millet, which is it's got to be just a little bit bigger, because the original recipe says to put this, and it's under the part that says to cook fonio. So the second paragraph, it says put in a pan the vegetable stock and the fonio, and then boil it for a minute. I didn't exactly memorize it. And then turn it off and keep, let me read it, sorry. So bring it to a boil, then reduce the heat for 1 minute, turn off the heat, keep it covered for 4 more minutes, and it's done. If you do that with millet, it is not done. Okay? It's just not done. It took half an hour on the stovetop. And so I did it like I do like rice, any kind of rice, quinoa. I spray my pan. I bet you I have my pan back there. Can you hand me the blue, like cake pan? The blue glass plate cake? Yeah. I spray my pan, and then I put the rice or quinoa, or in this case millet, in it. And, okay, thank you. So just a glass pan. Lots of people make cakes in these. And then put the grain in it, and then put twice as much water or vegetable stock in it. And if you're just using water, then sometimes, well, actually all the time, I put a little splash of oil. Doesn't really matter what kind of oil, just put a little splash. And then either some seasoning, like sometimes I use salt, sometimes I use the McKay's chicken seasoning, which you guys have heard us talk about before. Or better than bouillon, you could put it in there and dissolve it, and just for a little flavor. But it also works with not putting a seasoning in it. So that's what I did with the millet. I put it in there. This size, which is closer to the 8 by 12, I did 1.5 cups. It would probably work with 2 cups of millet. The larger, the 9 by 13, I do 3 cups and then 6 cups of water, and it works lovely. So, so we have, okay, so we have our, this is the millet when it's cooked. This is the millet when it's not cooked. So it looks, there are some couscous that are like this, but couscous is a pasta. It's not a grain. So, I mean, you could change that. We're doing West African, so that's why I stuck with this. I think this would also be good with quinoa. But you could put the grain of your choice with it. I'm sure it would be good. Okay. So we have the millet that has cooled down, and then we have all the vegetables. And I just wanted to show you, I had some mangoes that were more ripe than others. So the one for the demonstration is a less ripe one, so that you guys would get the more ripe ones, because they're a little more juicy. This is closer to the color of a riper one, and then these ones, as you can see, are a little blonder. So I just chop the grape tomatoes in either half or thirds, and then dice the red onion fairly small, and the cucumbers, and then you just mix it all together. Sorry, guys. All right. So in here I have lemon zest. If you're not familiar with zesting, you have a plain, it's a little like a grater, tiny grater. You can also do it on a box grater. This is easier, I think. And then you just watch your fingers, your fingernails, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, your skin. I already did half of the lemon, which is what this needs, so that's why I'm not doing the whole thing in there. The thing that I didn't do, though, was get the lemon juice, and I didn't bring a knife out here, so I'm just going to cut it with this. Some lemons don't have very many seeds, and some do. So this one, of course, has a bunch. I like to squeeze the lemon into something different so that you can pick the seeds out if you need to, or pour the juice out of them. So, and then we do this one. This is a half batch, so I think it really only needs a half a lemon, but we have a whole lemon here, so we're going to use it. And then I just like to go between my fingers if I don't have a little sieve, so usually works pretty well, but sometimes you have to do it more than once. All right, good. And then we have salt and pepper. We already measured that in there. And then rice vinegar. Probably buy that at any store. I haven't tried to buy it at every store, but it's fairly common. What does it say, 2 tablespoons?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a half batch, so I'm only doing 1 tablespoon. And then the salt and pepper we already did. You can, if you're making a whole bunch, you can whisk it together. If you're just making this amount, then you don't have to. There's no oil in it, so if there's oil in a dressing, then you kind of want to either whisk it or get an immersion blender and mix them together. But there's no oil in this, so. I got to move this back over to the camera, sorry. Oh, you can get everything. Okay, so then we mix it. And then we're going to put this in. Sorry, guys. Get all the stuff out of it. There we go. And that's that. Oh, and the cashews. I just buy the raw cashews that are pieces. And I take them home and I roast them myself, because the ones that I found that are the least expensive are raw and pieces. So I'm like, you're going to want to chop them up anyway, so might as well have pieces. And it takes, if you have a small amount in your pan, like 10 minutes in the oven at 350. So it's just easy. Okay. Are there any questions about this recipe?
It's delicious.
No, thank you.
So good.
Do you have any recommendations on how to chop the mango easily?
Oh, I did save the pit out because I was going to talk about that, and then we decided everyone already knew. So a short story, a very short story. I worked at a daycare, and you have to have a certain amount of fruit and vegetable and protein and grain with each meal, right? And we have a lot of apples, oranges, bananas, the normal canned peaches, canned pears, lots of that. And so I was at Winco one morning on my way to work, and I saw mangoes for 48 cents. I'm like, oh, that's great. Did the math real quick. Oh, that's really good. We can do a really good, a different fruit for them, and it'll be great. And it's not very expensive. So I bought however many mangoes, lots, lots and lots of mangoes, and took them, and I made the easier version of my lunch that day because I'm like, this might take a little longer. Let me tell you, I don't think lunch was on time that day. And I got other people to help me because I'm like, I finally Googled it and it was not very successful. But basically I peel them like you peel a potato or something. I don't peel my potatoes anymore, but you with a vegetable peeler. And then I just cut in squares and then chop it off as good as you can. The knife stops at the pit, but there's always so much that seems like it's still hanging on. So I'm not too big of a fan of them, actually.
We love mangoes, and Safeway sells these bags of mangoes. They're a little bit pricey. They're probably like $7, but by the time you factor in that you bought the pit when you bought the mango, and it's peeled and frozen already, and I just can't find ripe mangoes in this town, and they're always ripe.
That's a good point too, because the mangoes that you're eating right now, I bought a week ago. Now, granted, they stayed in my fridge for 5 or so days, but they're a week. I mean, I didn't peel them a week ago. I just did that today. But I don't have any. So the answer to your question, how do you process a mango easily? I don't know. I wish I did. Yes, Austin.
I've had better success cutting into the skin if you stand it up tall-wise and pretend that the pit in the center is probably like a ½ inch thick, and cut straight down to get 2 large flanks, and then hold it on its side and with a paring knife cut a grid into it, and then you can scoop all the cubes out of the spoon.
Yeah.
That might be easier, yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank
like
you.
doing it that way, but instead of cutting and scooping it out, you just take a glass and you put the mango, it's this on the glass, and the glass takes the skin off, and then your mango half goes into the glass.
Oh.
That's
So you just like slide it like that, and it separates it really well.
Huh.
I'm a mango steward.
Okay. The hassle is not worth it for me. I'm like, I'll have an apple or an orange or anything. So, but anyway, any other questions on this?
Nothing like a fresh mango though.
Okay. Jonathan's going to
Where do
come.
you get your cashews?
So you can get them at virtually any store. Yes, we have gotten feedback before that. Yes, I bought them at Winco. I'm sure that you could get them at Real Foods or at Natural Grocers or Safeway or Albertsons or any of the stores in town. I like them from there because they're bulk and they are pieces and they're raw. So I used them for this. I use them for granola, make cashew sauce. Lots of virtually everything that I make with a cashew is from there. So, all right. I think that Jonathan, we're ready for Jonathan. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. What's that? What is it? Oh, my bad. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I have one more. This is your extra. I don't need that. No. This is your extra recipe in there. You don't get to taste it, but we do have pictures. You have the recipe in yours, so pictures. So I got plantains at 2 different places, and I, once again, didn't do enough research to know what a ripe plantain was, other than it was supposed to be yellow turning brown. So, and I bought the darker ones a couple days before I bought the other ones, so of course they're darker. And then I chopped them. I took pictures so that I have pictures of the dark ones and the light ones, and I did it separately for everything. And then when I was all finished, I could not tell the difference between the two. So you only get one picture. I don't know which one this is. They looked virtually the same after they were cut. The riper they are, the easier they are to peel. I had plantains once before. I may have already told you. In the academy, we had people from the Congo, and they, Republic of Congo, sorry. They wanted to do a native dish, and it included plantains. I bought this big box. You think of banana boxes, you know, of plantains, and they must not have been very ripe. Anyway, they were fried and da-da-da-da-da. But they tasted more like potatoes to me. That's what I was expecting with this recipe. They do not taste like potatoes. They taste more like bananas. The first time, though, I'm like, why do they look like a banana? They don't even taste anything like a banana. But so maybe they weren't ripe. So the picture on your far left is just when the sugar is on it in the bowl. It says 3 tablespoons. I'm like, that's not enough. It's enough. I like trust the recipe. Yeah. And then I put them in the pan, and then took them out of the pan. So that's just the bottom one on the left is in the pan, but not cooked at all yet. And then that's after I turned them over, and then that's kind of how they look. The write-up in the recipe was much more delicious than those were. But I have people even in the back who love them. They were delicious and took the leftovers, you know. So, so if you like plantains and coconut or want to try something new, then that's a good one to try. So that's all
What kind of oil do you cook them in?
I used avocado oil because that's what I have. So I think it just says a light, a neutral oil. So yeah. Does it?
This is coconut or olive on the recipe, but yeah,
Okay. I used avocado because that's what I have. So
it's a good flavor.
any other questions? Okay, now it's time for Jonathan.
Although outside it looks like late afternoon. Good evening, everyone. As I'm Jonathan, if this is your first time here, and I'm here to give you your little health nugget. As you're here exploring or perhaps continuing your journey, checking out plant-based cooking, I'm here to help you raise your health IQ by looking into some topics kind of regarding eating and food. And previously we've talked about whole grains. That was kind of last time's deal. And today we're going to talk about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. There are a lot of words and things that get thrown around during discussions about diet, and carbohydrates is one of them, and that's the one we're going to look at today. I always forget which arrow is which. Where do I point? Down. Got it. There it is. So what is a carbohydrate? You've already heard the word, I'm sure, and hopefully you didn't split it up in your mind and think, how do you hydrate with carbos? I don't know what how do you carbohydrate? Anyway, it's carbohydrate, one word. It's one of 3 macronutrients that are usually talked about when it comes to diets and food. Those 3 macronutrients being carbohydrates, fat, and dietary fat specifically, and protein. They come in a few forms. Sugar, fiber, starch are all carbohydrates. And there are 2 kind of types, which is simple and complex. So the 2 kind of categories of carbohydrates, simple by definition are made of 1 or 2 sugar molecules, and complex are made of multiple sugar molecules called polysaccharides, and this is where you find the starches and your fibers is in this category of complex carbohydrates. What do carbohydrates do for you? Why would you want them? Well, what they do is they break down in your body. So once you ingest them, they break down in your body into glucose. Your digestive system snips apart all these molecules, these carbohydrate molecules, into glucose. What is glucose? Glucose is the primary fuel for your body. essentially all of your body systems run on energy. That energy comes primarily from glucose. That's what your body's designed to run on. That's how it runs. And there's a particular part of your body that uses the most. Anybody want to take a stab? It's your brain. You're absolutely right. I was wondering how much your brain did use specifically. I found and actually this study was referencing a different study, which was referencing, anyway, there was a chain reference of studies, but the statistic they gave was that 20 to 25% of your daily energy that your body uses is used by your brain. And even though your brain only makes up about 2% of your entire body mass, so kind of a greedy organ. But, the brain's the most important, but look who's talking. So the brain thinks it's important, but it is. It is. It runs everything else. But most of your energy is actually used by your brain, and your brain exclusively runs on glucose. In fact, glucose is so important that in this study, and I'll have to just read it because I didn't memorize it, the mammalian brain depends upon glucose as its main source of energy, and tight regulation of glucose metabolism is critical for brain physiology. Consistent with its critical role for physiological brain function, disruption of normal glucose metabolism, as well as its interdependence with cell death pathways, forms the pathophysiological basis for many brain disorders. So why in the world, or would you ever want to disrupt your normal glucose metabolism? I would not, because that sounds pretty ominous. I found this neat little graphic that I wanted to share with you that kind of gives you the picture of what happens to glucose in your body. So you ingest carbohydrates, they turn into glucose, and the glucose goes one of three places. Did you know that the majority, by far, certainly for the average population and really most of the population, of your daily energy needs are expended on just being alive? Breathing, heart beating, muscle repair, everything, all your metabolic functions, most of your energy is spent just being alive. And that energy you need to take in that energy. Obviously, we can't just stand out in the sun like a tree and be energized by the sun. We have to get that energy from somewhere, so we ingest it. So most of the energy just gets used by your body. But we're talking about over the course of a day, you use all that energy. And you can't just sit there and eat. You're not just sitting there eating all day. So some of that glucose is not needed at this exact moment when you're taking it in. And so it'll go into a short-term storage called glycogen. Glycogen is stored in your muscles and in your liver. And so you get your energies being used, and if you got excess glucose floating around in your bloodstream, your body starts packaging it away, because we'll need this eventually. So we'll just start packaging this away. And then if the body looks around and says, oh, we still got glucose floating around, glucose floating around, we need to do something else with it because there's a limited capacity for glycogen. Then it'll start converting glucose into fat. So that's where glucose, that's how it goes, in that order. So it'll use it. If it can't use it, it'll do short-term storage. Once that's full, long-term storage, which is called fat. So you might be thinking to yourself, see, carbs make fat. Well, not so fast there, Turbo. Because a carb is not a carb is not a carb. So let's have a little discussion about carbs, specifically simple carbs. Because even simple carbs are not simple carbs, are not simple carbs. So let's take a look at this example right here. Muffin, apple. They're both carbohydrates, technically. Not even technically, they just are. They're both carbohydrates. Now, that being said, actually, it's a little unfair to say this is a carbohydrate, this is not a carbohydrate. Because when we're looking at foods, specifically whole foods, or even not whole foods, but when you're looking at food in general, it's actually made up of a combination of different things. There's carbohydrates, there's fats, there's protein. They come in different ratios depending on the type of food you're looking at. But when something is predominantly a carbohydrate, we usually label it as a carbohydrate. So that's why we're looking at these two things as carbohydrates. They both contain simple carbohydrates because they're made of either one or two of those glucose molecules, sugar molecules together. I found a couple of neat sites. You can kind of find them if you just look up nutrition facts, whatever food you're looking for. And you'll find a few of these sites will pop up, usually towards the top of the search results, that will give you neat little labels that look just like labels, which is kind of fun. And it makes it easier to, because this is kind of what we're trained to look at. You know, when in school you learn to look at these type of labels, so it's kind of fun to see like a carrot. This is what the nutrition facts are, because they don't actually come with labels in the store. You're just like, carrot, all right, good. But we're gonna actually look at the difference here between a muffin and a large apple. I had to pick, I picked this muffin and I had to pick a large apple just to get the same weight. Did you know that the Costco muffin is approximately 6 ounces? I found that in an article from Costco. So each one of their muffins are about 6 ounces. And this is pretty close in grams. It's maybe a little lower. Are you seeing some differences in the numbers between these two things?
Yeah.
So I originally, actually, when I was looking up images, I actually picked up a stock image, and it ended up being a bunch of churros. But I realized that wasn't really a fair comparison, because most people don't pick a churro as an afternoon snack. Or in the case of, to get the same weight as an apple, like 7 churros. But a muffin is actually a very common. That would be an easy, oh, there's a muffin, I'll take a muffin. So a muffin, large apple, same weight, these two items. And we're gonna just kind of break down what we're looking at here. So you got fat at the top, you've got kind of your breakdown there, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, protein, you know, your big numbers there, your macros, and you have some other nutrients, some different vitamins and minerals and that type of thing. Our big thing today is we're looking at carbohydrates, and so we're wondering what the difference is between these two. Obviously, total sugar in the muffin is actually higher, which is probably not that surprising, but in the apple there is also sugar, 22 grams of it in fact. But there's a difference between the sugar in the muffin and the sugar in the apple. And the difference is because of what it is. So you'll see in the muffin we have sugars and we have added sugars. If you see added sugars on a nutrition label, that is something highly refined that was added to the product. So you're talking straight, simple, one molecule sugars like cane sugar, agave, there was a longer list and I've already brain dumped it. So, but you're just talking straight refined sugar. So this is something that's gonna hit your body. Your body's going to process it very quickly and it's gonna go right into your bloodstream. The apple does not have added sugar, and all of its sugars, although it has some simple sugars, they are gonna come in the disaccharide form where they're going to be 2 sugars linked together. So they're still technically a simple sugar, but they do still need to be at least a little bit broken apart. And then the other portion of the sugars, including for the muffin, are going to be maybe slightly longer chains. Now the muffin, something else it has going against it is that it's going to probably be made of a refined wheat, which is already broken down, which means it's going to process faster in your body. Whereas, and it doesn't have, as you can see there, oh, well, you can't point at a laser pointer at a TV. Anyway, if you look right under total carbohydrates, you'll see fiber. And the fiber in the muffin is 2. The fiber in the apple is 5. Fiber breaks down much, much more slowly than the simple carbohydrates. And so the carbohydrates that are found in this apple, which there are half as much as the muffin, are going to break down slower in your body, thus being released into your bloodstream slower, thus changing how it affects your body. So if we look back at the diagram we looked at earlier, if you have a muffin, you ingest the muffin, you digest the muffin, all of that sugar gets dumped into your bloodstream, you're going to have met your current energy need fairly quickly. You will then very rapidly fill up your glycogen stores, And then the remaining blood sugar, which will be probably quite high still, will be then converted into fat. The other problem with the muffin is then it digested really quickly. So now you're hungry again. So now you're going to eat more food. Oftentimes. Not every time, obviously. Some of us have excellent discipline, not me. But we have, and so you can see, and we're not going to talk about calories necessarily today. I think that's a discussion we can save that for a different day. But the calorie difference. So if you eat a muffin and it burns off and now you want another muffin, whereas you could have eaten an apple and maybe you would have, even if you had eaten an apple and then eaten another apple, you're not eating as much energy, you're not consuming as much energy as the muffin. And it's not hitting you the same way because it's taking time to digest and it's moving into your bloodstream a little more slowly. All right, try not to get ahead of myself. So complex carbohydrates, some of those parts of that picture might look familiar if you were here at our last cooking class. Grains are complex carbohydrates, sweet potatoes, your beans, legumes. We got a lot of carbohydrate, heavy, like more carbohydrates. They also come with fats and proteins, but they have more carbohydrates. And so those are a little depiction of kind of some of the chains that you'll find if you are more interested in some of the, how it looks like, how those little chains fit together. A note on fiber though, some of it is insoluble, some of it's soluble. Some of the fiber is good for you, and some of the fiber is actually good for the things inside you. So your gut is actually filled with it has what we call a microbiome, and it's filled with tiny little organisms that are not you, that are inside you, that are helping you do things like move food through your body. And some of that fiber actually is just to feed them so they can keep you healthy. So they can help keep the bad things moving. Fiber also kind of works as a scrubber, and it moves stuff through your body. And I'm going to get distracted talking about fiber instead of carbohydrates. So we've kind of covered what glucose does, what carbohydrates do when they break down into glucose into your body. But what's the practical application? How does that help you from day to day? When you go out of here with this little knowledge, as your health IQ is increasing, how do you apply that? Because really, if you learned something and it's not useful to you, what was the point of learning it? Well, carbohydrates, they're a necessary part of your diet. It's what your body runs on. Your muscles run on glucose. The glucose breaks down into ATP. That's how you do stuff. Like, for example, Spartan races. Aru. All right. Saw a spell of Spartan back there. They're found in many, many foods. Not animal foods, but they're found in plants all over the place. Our carbohydrates, this energy source is abundant, which is good because you need it, and your brain needs it. There's a consideration here for athletics or activities, if you engage in activities, when you're considering your carbohydrate sources and the type of carbohydrates you want to ingest. So if you are just an average American office worker, you can see how if you ingested a refined, highly processed muffin, in addition to missing out on some of the benefits of the like micronutrients of the vitamins and the minerals that would come from a better source, you're also getting that dump of glucose, which is going to very frequently leads to weight gain because your body's got to do something with that glucose in your bloodstream. It can't just sit there. It can't just leave all that glucose in your blood. So it's going to convert it into fat when everything else is covered. But if you were, say, I don't know, backcountry skiing or mountain biking, that muffin may not be so bad. So it's not necessarily, I don't want to call food, some of these foods are not necessarily bad entirely. They're just not necessarily the right choice for the occasion. And that's where you want to make those good, solid food decisions. The Costco muffin's got some animal products in it, so I don't endorse that. But you can have foods that are a little higher on this, what they refer to as the glycemic index. And sometimes, if you're in the right spot, you kind of want that. So there are times where it's better to have like a whole fruit. And there are other times, say if you're into an athletic endeavor, you might want the dried fruit because you just get more of that sugar down in you. Like for example, grapes is a great example. If you have whole actual grapes, you can eat a handful of grapes, right? If you ate the same handful of raisins, that would be a whole different nutrient profile, right? You'd get a lot of the same minerals and more or less the same fiber, but you lost all that water content. And so you can actually end up consuming way more calories, which depending on what you're doing is fine. But if you don't need all those extra calories, then you gotta, so this is where you kind of make those decisions, right? Where you wanna consider, what are my energy needs today? What are my energy needs maybe in the last few days? We can look at these things holistically. Like I was actually just checking before. Now the watch, obviously I've got like one of those little smartwatch deals, a gift. It was nice. It's pretty cool. It's nerdy and it gives me a lot of information that I probably didn't need before now, but now I can't do without it. So yesterday I ran a Spartan race. I burned above my normal metabolic rate. It estimated I burned 1,100 calories more than what I normally do. My active calories, that's what they call it. Today I've burned 100, so above what I normally do, because I didn't do anything today. But so you have these days where maybe if you're consistently sedentary, you want to look at your options with carbohydrates are your fuel and you need them and you want the highest quality carbohydrates you can get. And if you want to have a positive health outcomes, you don't want to overdo it on the simple carbohydrates. You want those complex carbohydrates that will keep you fuller, longer, and that will burn more slowly and give you the energy you need over the long term. Whereas if you're active and you're doing things and you need energy boost because you're just killing it out there, then some simple carbs, they're not necessarily the enemy. You just need to know, but now that you know a little bit more about what they are, you can utilize the ones you need to fuel you on your next adventure. And hopefully we covered a little bit of label reading, and now you can understand whenever you see added sugar, think twice, because that added sugar, I'd frankly say it's not food. They just added it there. It's just straight sweetness. That's just going to go straight into your body, and it's going to spike your blood sugar. And so and as the predominance of diabetes and these other chronic health conditions pervades society, you want to try and protect yourself from the injuries that these conditions can cause. And so if you were someone you know struggles with blood sugar, now you can kind of arm them with those tools. They don't have to necessarily stay away from carbohydrates entirely, but the type of carbohydrates that they choose can make a huge difference. Questions?
A question about carb loading. So
yes.
Based on what you're talking about with complex carbs, is the theory behind carb loading, like theoretically the night before, eating a big, heavy, complex meal, that's going to be there that you can pull from, like an energy level the next day? Is that
right?
It is.
That's essentially the strategy, right? Because we were talking about you have your energy need, but you get so by carb loading, by getting all that energy in there, especially quality, good, complex carbohydrates, your body's going to start processing that. It's going to take care of its current energy needs. It's going to fill up those glycogen stores so they're ready and available for your marathon or whatever it is you're going to go do. And then it'll put some of that stuff into fat if there's excess. And during endurance events in particular, which is often where the carb loading comes from, where you're running your half marathon, your marathon, you're 2 to 3 hours out on an obstacle course race or trail run or mountain biking activity, whatever big thing you want to do. The longer you're out there, what'll happen, your body is prepared for this. You use up your energy, you use up the glucose that's available in your bloodstream, you use up the glycogen stores, and there is a process in your body that will start converting fat into energy. It's slow, and so that's why you don't see it. Like your sprinter is never going to hit that point. 400 meters done, glycogen depleted. That's why they're done after that. They've used up all their immediate energy source. But when you're out there doing that endurance stuff, then that fire starts burning and you start burning those fat, starts taking those fat molecules apart, converting them into energy so that you can keep going. Absolutely, yes.
My question was on the complex carbohydrates. When you're talking about grains, which ones are more, which are more towards the complex versus?
Good question. So which whole grains or grains are more on the complex side. The whole grains, essentially. So the more original in the form, the more complex it's going to be. If you're wanting to stay away from simple carbohydrates, you got to stay away from the refined ones. So your white wheat is refined to a point where all of those, what used to be complex carbohydrates, are already broken down. And so they're not complex anymore. So they're going to burn a lot faster. But if you can get whole wheat, the story's a little different because the complex portion of it is still there. Your white rice, same thing. It's going to burn a lot faster than brown rice. By burn, I mean in your body, it's going to burn a lot faster than brown rice will. So the more whole grain that you have, the more complex carbohydrates are going to be in there, and it's going to slow that digestion and give you that longer term energy.
That's like millet now. Like, where do some of those ancient grains fall in there? Do you have any idea?
I think most of those are whole grains because they don't really. Because unlike wheat, where they'll like take the bran off, or same thing with like rice, they take that bran off. When they take that bran off, you're losing all that fiber, which, as we just found out, is a carbohydrate. So you're losing all the complex carbs, and all you have left is in this case, mostly the starch. But because we cook the grains, then the starch kind of breaks down. So you took off the fiber, left the starch, then you cook the starch, and now the starch is pretty easily digestible. And so that's kind of how that works. And so when you have these, like your quinoa and your millet and these other grains, that bran's still there. And so as long as that bran's still there, you're still getting that fiber and that part. Pasta is kind of interesting. So if you have whole wheat pasta and you put it in the pot, you can cook it. If you cook it to kind of al dente, it's still going to have, at least according to if you look up the glycemic indices, it's actually going to still be okay. But if you get distracted and you take a phone call from your Aunt Betsy and you're gone a little too long and that pasta gets mushy, now it's going to digest quicker because you've cooked it to a point where it's going to be more easily digestible. So.
Now, back to your brain point, okay, you said it takes 25% of the energy, or all our energy, to work our brain. Now, if we're not getting the energy, that's what we get like a brain fog from?
I don't know that I could totally, where does brain fog come from not enough energy? I would think that would certainly be a contributor to brain fog. If you don't have the gas to run the engine, it's not going to run very well. But the brain is very complex, as our entire body is, and B, there are other factors that can affect your brain and your clarity and your comprehension, and so that limited or a lack of energy store can be one of them, but there are certainly others that can also contribute to that, like substance addictions and that type of thing. Because many people experience brain fog simply because they're accustomed to, for example, a certain level of caffeine, which is a substance that people are addicted to. Anyway, and so just simply not having the level of other chemicals can also lead to those type of symptoms, I'm surprised no one said anything about keto.
So what I would say is, I'm an insulin-dependent diabetic, and sometimes I don't treat myself properly. The other day, I took insulin, and I really should eat a meal within 15 minutes. But about an hour went by. So my blood sugar is bottoming out around 40.
Right.
And so what's fascinating is my brain starts to get fuzzy. And I know I have to eat sugar, which I do. I either drink something, like orange juice, or sometimes candy or two, sometimes ice cream. But it's fascinating to me how the body responds to a lack of adequate carbohydrate and or sugar in the blood.
Absolutely.
And I can testify that it affects my brain.
I appreciate that firsthand account. So that lack of energy, that lack of glucose in your blood, that lack of fuel for the brain, really does immediately and noticeably, as you mentioned, affect.
I mean, and the truth is that without treating, I could die.
Yes, yes.
And so we
Very true.
live without enough carbohydrate or broken down sugar in
Well-
our body. The brain, for one, can't do it.
Right. Your brain is a very hungry organ. It wants that.
I can start to
glucose.
lose my physical coordination.
Right, absolutely.
I can start to feel weak,
Mm.
a little bit dizzy, and it's altogether not comfortable or safe.
Right, absolutely. Thank you.
That Dawson gets very, very angry.
Yeah, that hangry is a real thing. So I mean, when your glucose is depleted and you don't have that fuel, in that case, your glycogen stores are probably depleted too. You burned it all off, and now there's just not enough, and it affects everything. A quick note, at least a note on keto, because maybe somebody's thinking it, or we do post these videos online, and somebody will definitely ask. So just a note on what about ketones? Ketones can feed your brain. Your brain can run on that. There is actually a system in your body that will supply energy to your brain. It is a secondary source of energy. And anybody want to take a stab as to why it's there? Survival. It's a starvation mechanism. So if you go without food and you're completely without food, your body doesn't want to die, and it has this secondary backup system where it can produce ketones, which will keep your brain functioning at least for a while, at least as long as you can produce them. And so that does exist. And the ketogenic diet in particular essentially uses a low carbohydrate diet to simulate starving while not starving you, which to me is just a weird thing that you would do that on purpose. That I don't want my primary fuel source. I would like to pretend that I'm starving but not actually be starving. So I'm actually getting adequate nutrition, but not what I would normally get. And I mean, we could probably have a whole discussion on that, and I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole necessarily, but I did want to at least address it. But that's the thought process. That's where that diet kind of comes from. And it is true that your brain can run on ketones, but it is not optimal. Glucose is what it's designed for. Glucose is what your rest of your muscles are designed for, and that's what it prefers. And it runs really easily. That's why carbohydrates digest so easily. Fats and proteins do digest in your body, but they digest more slowly, and they kind of do different things.
On that, the study I saw was that diet is only supposed to be done for a certain amount of time under the view of a doctor.
Right. And the actual original, just so you guys know, the original purpose of the ketogenic diet was to address seizures. It was actually designed 100 years ago, but it was specifically for epileptic seizures, because they found that in these cases where these children and adults who had these problems with epileptic seizures, they found that the seizures kind of resolved when they were starving. But you can't starve indefinitely, and so they came up with this idea to keep you alive by giving you nutrients, but also get your body to think it's starving. So unless you're in that situation, in which case my heart goes out to you, it's hard to justify. There are a lot of things where we get these abnormalities in the human condition. And sometimes we need to address those specifically. But for the broad range of people, for the broad spectrum of humanity, we're designed to run on glucose. That's what we're supposed to do.
What if I just really, really like simple carbs? Love them.
Yes.
Could I survive on just a vitamin supplement to get my vitamins, because I don't need that, and then just very, very small quantities of chocolate at regular intervals?
Right. That's a great question. So can you survive on chocolate and take a pill? That is a fair question. Right.
To keep the right glucose levels in my bloodstream.
Right. And that's why I wanted to kind of hit this idea about the simple and the complex carbohydrate. If you know what you're getting into, I mean, by having a better understanding of what a carbohydrate is, what do these sugars actually do in your body, you can know you know what you're doing to yourself. You know, for example, like I get it, sugar, cookies, like. That's one thing I have not been able to like overcome. I was able to get past the like cheese addiction, but sugar, man, sugar is awesome. It's great, but it's not that great for you. At least when, and mostly what it is it has to do with, does it exclude more positive things in your diet? So if you can have like a great salad that covers your nutrition requirements, and then have a chocolate chip cookie. I mean, or you know, a chocolate bar. Like, you're once again looking at the totality of your diet. Although it would be optimal to kick the refined sugar habit if you could get sugars out completely. But I mean, really, some of it's having a little bit of it. If you're looking at again the totality of your diet, if you're trying to subsist solely on simple carbohydrates, you know, you can actually. And this one I stumbled on a few weeks ago. You can actually lose weight on Twinkies. There was a guy. It was one guy. He did it on his own. He did this. He didn't do it very long because it's extremely unhealthy. But he ate 1,500 calories of Twinkies a day, and he lost weight because he was eating 1,500 calories a day. And so, what's that? One Twinkie. Probably like one Twinkie, right? It's like one Twinkie that. So he was, but anyway, it was just it was more just to kind of demonstrate that it's a complex thing that's going on when it comes to your health, and you want to get adequate nutrition. And by eating, as we promote here, a variety of plant-based foods, you're going to get what you need. Your body's going to work through all that material, and you're going to be all right. And by eating predominantly whole food plant-based, to give you an out, if you're eating predominantly whole food plant-based, you're probably going to have the calorie budget to indulge a little bit. And as long as you're not facing, you know, just know what you're doing to yourself. Because like I heard, I think it was Dr. Neil Barnard kind of pointed out, was that if you would like certain chronic conditions in moderation, eat animal products in moderation. You know, it's the same thing. If you just know that if you're what you're doing, you know. So if you drive too fast on the road, you will probably get away with it most of the time. But if you do it all the time, there's the likelihood of you having an accident is higher than if you don't drive too fast. Yes?
Would you like to speak to coffee?
Coffee? You want me to dive into coffee?
Maybe not tonight.
Maybe not tonight? Maybe I should save that one. I'll save that one. 2 minutes on coffee? Oh, what? I can get
Where do you work, Nikki?
I can Starbucks. I could get goaded into things, but
You can have 2 minutes.
I don't know if I want 2 minutes on coffee, really, but I could. I'm not a fan of coffee. But I don't drink it. No, I definitely watched plenty of my cohorts drink it, even now. Actually, I work in an industry where our primary purpose is to transport coffee from one location to another. It's an aviation joke, but.
Would you say you dislike coffee specifically or caffeine in general?
Well, it's really what it has to do with is there's a whole idea about this something called excitotoxins, and caffeine is one of those substances. There are other ones. But there are these substances, including caffeine, which when they interact with your body they do pass the blood-brain barrier, and then they do weird things to your hormones. Which is why, for example, when you imbibe in coffee or caffeinated soft drinks, you become kind of dependent on them, is because they have a physiological effect on your body. They also reduce blood flow in your brain, which is, I need all the blood flow in my brain that I can get. Frankly. But obviously I know lots of nice people that drink coffee, and I don't have anything against them. I also know lots of people that eat steaks. I don't have anything against them either. So, but I have chosen to avoid coffee, and like I said, it's kind of for that particular reason. It's the effects that the caffeine has and I don't need another thing to be dependent on. I'd rather have dependents. I don't want to be a dependent on.
All right,
I
guys.
don't know if that was 2 minutes. Is that under? Did you count?
I passed out the feedback form, if you could fill that out. And with that, I also sent, it's a list of the community gardens in town. I don't know, a couple weeks ago, we were at a community garden and we were picking honeyberries. And I'm like, what are these for? They were like the gardens, not a particular person's. And they said, oh, we pick these and we give them to Helena Food Share. So that's the one that says you can volunteer on Tuesdays, any or every Tuesday at Selma Health, which is actually very close to here. But they give, thank you. They give the extra produce, because you can rent a plot and then you also have their bushes and things. They give that to Helena Food Share. I don't know much about the other community gardens, but if you're like, man, I wish I could get outside and get in the dirt because it's really good for you and it's healthy, but I live in an apartment or whatever the case may be. Those are some ones to check out. Some of them have phone numbers. I just did it online. You can ask, you can Google it, right? So if you need more information on those. Dr. Kraneker has spoken here before. His wife is big into helping on those. So the Kranekers are at the Selma Held one on Tuesday afternoons. Any other questions? Yes.
Do we just show up to Selma Held, or?
Yes. Yeah. Any questions overall about the class? Anything? Okay, our next one is not in 6 weeks. I think I already told you, is near the end of August. I don't have the exact date, but yeah. Yes. Yes, Jonathan?
If they're not already on your mailing list, how do they get on your mailing list?
Ooh, the email address on the feedback form is the best way. I think maybe a couple people I don't have email addresses for. Yes, Liam? Do you have one now? Yeah. Woohoo! All right, let's sign them up. Sign them up. And then we have salad, some of the salad left, if you would like some. So feel free to hang out, visit, and then we'll hopefully see you in August.
Thank you.